Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with guest Paul Zolman, love language linguist. Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and today I'm so pleased to have Paul Zolman on. He is a love language linguist. I love that title. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Lorianne. It's my pleasure to be with you today. Looking forward to this.
Me too. And this is really different. We're going to talk all about it. But first of all, I wanted to ask, how did you come up with this passion that you've pursued?
It actually comes from having an adversarial type of relationship with my parents when I was young, and not feeling love, or just, I like to compare it, Lorianne. The other day I was out walking and I found a stick that didn't have any bark on it at all. This is the stick that I found, and this side's very, very nice and smooth. Put your hand on it, but the other side has knots on it, and it is just a little lumpy. You wouldn't want to put your hand down on that end. So I caught my knotty and nice stick, and I think that we've got Santa Claus has a stick just like that, Lorianne. You didn't know that's where the presents come from, I'm sure. So this stick, what I realized is that I was raised in a family of anger on the naughty side of the stick. I didn't realize that until about 15 years ago. I was dating a woman after the demise of my first marriage. I was dating a woman that it was time to take her for Big Brother approval. Went up to where my brother lives, 300 miles north, took her in, and the first thing that happens, my sister-in-law pulls her aside and says, the only emotion that the Zolman family learned growing up is anger. First I denied it, said, then it made me mad. And I thought, she nailed it. She really nailed it. And I realized that I was on that naughty side of the stick. That anger was a culture, that vocabulary, that humor, that put downs, all those things that are angry were on that side of the stick. And I decided I didn't want that kind of life. I just decided, and I started saying things like, well, I don't want to be angry. Well, you know how that kind of works. If you're saying a negative statement, a double negative only works in math, Lorianne. You can multiply two negative things together and it comes out positive, a positive number. It doesn't work in relationships. So that wasn't working for me. So I thought, you know what, I've got to figure out a way to make this work. When my sister-in-law identified that I was on that naughty end of the stick, I realized that I had been blaming my father for all things that were wrong with my social awkwardness, with awkwardness within the family, because I realized that I had the same issue that he had. He'd be annoyed, stacking these annoyances on top of one another, and then he'd flash. You'd never know when that flash would happen, but definitely it would happen. And it was just one of those circumstances that you kind of just stayed away, kind of stay in your own lane and do what you're supposed to do. And so I did not want to cross that threshold to get the belt or get spanked when I was younger. But I realized that by blaming him, I didn't have to do a thing. It was his problem. And while it's his problem, I can stay and do whatever I want to do. Well, I realized at age 35, he's been dead 7 years. I'm responsible now. And I was still blaming him, even though he's dead for 7 years, I was still blaming him for things that I was doing. And I realized he can't even defend himself. I can't even talk to him. And that sort of thing. And once I realized that, I said, I've got to be responsible for my own actions. And so I started working with this after that sister-in-law event. I started reading the color code and reading the 5 love languages, and realized that I really resonate with the 5 love language. Dr. Gary Chapman, who wrote the book in the early 90s, published it first in 1992. And had this theory that everybody has a love language, a primary love language, or possibly even a secondary love language. That's how they view love. That's how they like to be loved. And I thought, well, that's great, Dr. Chapman, but I'm a bad guesser, Lorianne. If I guess what your love language is and cater to it, I guess we're going to be buddies. But they're calling that love. That didn't sound like love to me. That sounded like more of a manipulation or a catering to someone. It really didn't resonate with the other message that he has. The message that Dr. Chapman had, he was a reverend, a pastor, that said that those love languages reconciled to the life of Jesus Christ. So if we wanted to be more like Jesus Christ, that's what you do. You follow those love languages. And so that's what I wanted to do. And so his application of guessing or suggesting or finding out what the love languages didn't work for me. Second thing he has in the book, Lorianne, is that, well, if I take this survey, I'll find out what my love language is. What do I do with that? Do I advertise? Hello, Lorianne. I'm Gifts. What do you have for me today? I mean, it sounds like it'd be a fun activity, but it's so awkward. I'm done with the social awkwardness. Remember, if you've seen anybody get angry in a social situation, that's really kind of awkward. And that was me. It would repel my family. It would repel everybody around me. I didn't want that anymore. Just did not want that type of atmosphere to project it, number one, but to be the center of it, number two. Did not want that for me. And so I just started reading the love languages. And I remember as a child thinking that games brought our family together, even though there was still the smack talk, there was still the put downs that, and it was just all that way. I think it was passed down from possibly my grandfather, possibly my great grandfather. It's a generational thing. And that the attitudes that we learn as children are passed down from our parents. And at some point in time, we get to break those strings and break the chain. And I said, if there's a time to change the perception of my family, the Zolman family, from that angry family to a more loving family, now is the time. So that's when I did this study, and I realized that Dr. Chapman he had the principles, but it just didn't have the application that I needed. So I thought, well, maybe I can make it into a game. So I contacted Dr. Chapman and asked him if he's licensing those little icons or the pictures of the different love languages. And his attorney wrote me back and said, no, we're not doing that right now. So I contacted a copyright attorney. I thought I had a kind of an idea about this. Contacted this intellectual property attorney in my city. He said that theory, like the love language theory, is not copyrightable. Application is. So I thought, well, I'll make my own icons and make it into a game. So that's what I did. So I created this cube. Right now I'm holding up, for the listeners, I'm holding up a cube that is about 1 inch by 1 inch. On one side of the cube, it's all pictures, just two hands that are touching each other. So for that particular love language, we're talking about touch. The next one I'm holding is a hand that is holding a gift. A hand holding a hourglass, so that represents time. A person that looks like they're a server of some sort, and they have a platter on their hand, so that represents service. And then the last one, of course, is the words. It's a two hands together forming a heart, and then a conversation fly out from that heart, meaning the words of the heart. So those are the 5 love languages. There's 6 sides on the cube. On the 6th side, I put a hand holding a question mark. And the question mark is for, I call it surprise me. So there's just 2 instructions, Lorianne. You roll the die every day. That's the love language you give away all day that day, all day. I'm single when I create this, so I didn't have a significant other, as Dr. Chapman suggests. And even at that, how many people do you know that are absolutely with their significant other 24/7? I know absolutely 0. None. They're not with them all the time. And most people would not want that. Just they wouldn't want that. Anyway, yeah. That's just something. And so I thought, instead of that being a part-time practice of love, just doing it with your significant other, I thought, I'll do it to everybody. And I realized that actually creates character. doing this all day long to everyone. You're watching for opportunities. And here's the paradigm shift, Lorianne, that as I'm doing that and watching for opportunities to love in the whatever way that I rolled for that day, I'm watching for what's right about that person. What can I love about that person? And I'm so busy doing that that I forget the annoying things that, I hardly ever get annoyed at myself. It was mostly getting annoyed with other people. And it's just what other people were doing. But I realized I have no control over their choices and what they're doing. When I realized that, I said, well, what is my lane? And my lane is to send love out. I only have the power to send it out. I really can't beckon it to come my way, but I can send it out and I can respond when it does come my way. So what this does over a 30-day period, it gives you you understand, it gives you an understanding of the love languages backwards and forwards, that you know them, you become what I like to call that love language linguist. And it's a sexy title, Lorianne. I know you want to put that on your resume, as do all your listeners. But well, think about that. If it's on your resume and you go in for an employment interview, this employer is going to say, what the heck is a love language linguist? You're going to say, I just love people. That employer wants their customers loved, and they want a loving environment so that production and anything going on in that environment, it's a productive workplace. So your resume should rise to the top by doing that. The second thing that happens is that you improve your vision so that you can see all 5 love languages when it comes your way. It may not be your primary love language that you're always looking for, and it may not be that, but you're saying, oh, it's over here. They're loving on me. I can still respond appropriately to them, knowing that they're sending out love my way. And so it really improves your vision that way. So, and by doing all this, what you're watching for every day that you're practicing is you're watching for when people light up. When they light up, now you don't have to stop the relationship and say, could you take this survey so that I know how to love you? This is kind of awkward all by itself. I'm done with awkward. We're not doing that. Now you're just using your observation skills and you're watching their reaction. So how does this really kind of apply to what your theme of your podcast is, Lorianne? Is that I think that a lot of people may blame others for their own actions. And if they're blaming others, they really are on, they're stuck in one spot on the stick. They may be on the bad side of the stick or the good side of the stick. It doesn't matter. They're stuck because if you're
Still on the
blaming,
bar.
yeah, on the spectrum, they're
Yeah.
stuck. They're really stuck on the spectrum. And if you're stuck on the spectrum, it's because you're blaming other people for and not being able to take action. But when you know where you are, when you're doing that self-actualization and realize where you are, you can become worse or you can become better. And what I'd like to just suggest to you and your audience is that when you find out where you are, find out some adjectives that might help you understand what it is and where you are at. And when you find that adjective, just for example, and I'm not saying this about you at all, but just for example, an adjective might be sarcastic. Maybe you're sarcastic. Is that on the naughty side of the stick or the nice side of the stick? Most people would agree that it's on the naughty side of the stick. Well, what would be the opposite? And if you want to follow this line of questioning in your own behavior so that you can set goals. If you want to set goals, you have to know where you're at right now. So if you're sarcastic right now, and what would be the opposite? It would be, well, maybe genuine, maybe authentic, maybe somebody that's true to their principles. So is sarcasm now a really attractive trait for anybody? It's really not. So when you understand,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Can I interject? Okay, I do like some forms of sarcasm
I
if
do
they're
too.
done in a funny, positive way. So sarcasm, I don't want to negate it in all negativity because I've had sarcasm from my uncle, from people, but they're just so quick-witted and they'll do something sarcastic, but it's not hurting anyone, but it's funny and it makes people laugh. The sarcasm that is meant to demean somebody I absolutely agree with you. And I have heard people demean people with that sarcasm. They think it's funny and other people don't. That's where it's like it's a gray scale on the sarcasm thing. But funny, sarcastic, I can take, but negative sarcasm, like you said, is very hurtful. And that's where you have to turn to what you were saying, kindness, think differently. But that's my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And I just threw the word sarcasm out just for an example of just finding an adjective, something that would describe where you're at, what kind of behavior you're doing right now. If you can do that, then look at what the opposite might be. And that's really kind of how you determine, well, is that on the nice side of the stick or the naughty side of the stick? And I would agree with you that some sarcasm is very funny. And it's just fun. It kind of breaks the ice and it kind of helps you. It's a great time, a great thing to have laughter with. But it's just trying to figure out, well, what is the behavior that I'm doing right now? Is it naughty or is it a nice type of behavior? What would the opposite be? And then just figure out, well, do I want to get worse or do I want to get better? And then when you have that self-actualization moment, that's when you can make some progress. You can't make progress blaming, so it's uh, either on the good side of the stick or the bad side of the stick.
And I like that too, because you're right. It's easy to blame, but then eventually you have to say, well, how am I dealing with this? These are my emotions. I'm the one who's dealing with these emotions. And so it's my choice how I deal with them. And like you said, easy, but when you turn back and go, well, you know what? Maybe I should switch my mindset and say, okay, that happened. How am I going to deal with it? I want to have a happy life. I also love the fact that when you talk about observing and you start observing the good, it's like the blue van thing. I think that they have the thing. So you buy a blue van, you haven't seen one, but once you buy one, you see a bazillion of them. So seeing the good in people, seeing what's positive in people, and we all have that moment where somebody might do something to us and we just sit there and we go, wow, I'm disappointed. That person's not what I thought. But that moment of disappointment doesn't have to be the whole scope. Do you see what I'm saying? You can have 10 good people in a room, one that's really, really mean to you, and the other 10 people all of a sudden fall into that like depression thing. I'm trying to say is that one moment of experience that person might have made you feel betrayed or whatever, what about all those other 99% of the time that you were with them and they made you feel good? There has to be some, like you said, focus on the good, that 99%, that 1% will then flow away. Does that make any sense to you, what I'm trying to say?
Absolutely. No, and you want to focus. Lorianne, I like to compare it to a magnifying glass. Anything, anything you do with a magnifying glass is going to make it larger. So if you
Yeah.
want to focus on the negative and make it larger, why would you do that? Why would you do it to anybody? Because guess what? It's a boomerang and it's coming right back at you. Now they're going to focus on your qualities that are not so redeeming, and they're going to focus on those things. And do you really want that? Quit sending it out. Don't do it. Just stop. I know it's easier said than done, but even when you said that hurt my feelings or anything like that, you can say that, but what I do is just move on. Find things that don't hurt your feelings. Find things that you can make that replacement behavior. Don't choose not to be offended. People will say things, people make mistakes all the time. And again, why focus on that? You want to enlarge the good.
Yeah.
Enlarge the good in everybody that you see and watch that grow. When you're nurturing and nourishing a plant, you want to talk to it nicely. You're not going to yell and say, "Why don't you grow up? Would you please grow up?" I mean, how's that going to work? I mean,
Right.
it doesn't work. So why would even be anybody think that? So we
It
don't
might
want
actually even it might even start turning brown and die on you if you're yelling
to,
at it, right?
yeah,
I
no
mean, that's
yelling at the
horrible to say,
plants.
but true, right? Like
No,
plants don't like to be mistreated either.
I don't.
No.
So what I found for Lorianne, what I found for me was that this became a replacement behavior. I found myself stacking, 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 just like my father, just like my brother, just like the family traditions that had been passed down inadvertently, subliminally, however you want to say it. It was just passed down by their actions, and we just follow their actions. So I found myself stacking, 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 then having that flash. After I created the die, started rolling the die, I found the paradigm shift. I found myself stacking nice things, kindnesses, stacking those kindnesses up. And then this was a foundation for me, Lorianne, that it got me to those other higher levels of love, like forgiveness, like intimacy, like compassion, like sympathy, like empathy, like charity, all those higher laws of love that we don't even talk about down on this level that we're at right now. On those specific love languages, this becomes the basis, though, and it's really almost elementary. And I think it's elementary for a lot of people. Maybe you've never been taught it, though, like me. It took me to age 35 to realize I'm responsible for my own stuff. So really, this is something brand new for me. What I've done with this die is actually take it to a K through 6 school locally and have them roll it as a class at the beginning of the day. It takes 2 seconds to roll the die, maybe 30 seconds, maybe 45 seconds for the teacher to explain, now class, this is the type of behavior we're watching for today. At the end of the day, what I've done is I've give the teacher a PDF of the journal that says what they rolled that day, opportunities they saw to love in that way, what they did about those opportunities. So at the end of the day, I've talked to teachers worldwide. They said the last 10 to 15 minutes of every school day is non-productive. Non-productive because the kids are anxious. They've been there all day. Their brain is mush. They're just not in a learning mode at that point in time. Take that, let's make it productive now. Have them write that journal page, what they rolled, what they did that day, or what opportunities they saw to love in that way that day, and what they did about it. Make it productive in that way. It does a couple of things. Number one, the teacher give a check mark, they send the paper home with the child. Astute parents will hold on to those journal pages and put it together at the end of the year. Now, for that first grader or that third grader, or that fifth grader, now you've got a journal from a love journal from that year. I
Nice.
remember my first grade teacher, Mrs. Rogers, and Mrs. Rogers, just so kind. I just remember the wonderful kindness that she had. Why do I even remember her name? Because I don't remember my second grade or my third grade teacher. Why do I remember Mrs. Rogers? And it has to be because of the kindness. We remember those kind moments. And I wish I had a journal to help kind of illuminate what it was during that whole school year with Mrs. Rogers that made me feel so kindly, even now, toward Mrs. Rogers. I would have loved to have that type of journal, as would my children love to have read something like that. So it becomes a love legacy journal. Think about that for a first grader, a third grader, fifth grader, whatever grade they're in the elementary school. These are basics that they're building. So we're building basics, number one. Number two, you've got a love journal. Number three, that child now, instead of having to wait till 35 years old like I did to realize, oh, I'm responsible for my actions, now they understand they're responsible themselves for their own actions. They have to report it at the end of the day. And that makes
Yeah.
a huge difference. You can see what that's going to do to tamp down any misbehaving and make the learning experience a whole lot more productive. Because if you have to discipline most of the time during the classroom, it's not productive learning. It's really not.
I will also say it's very good for adults because we tend to judge automatically as we get older. And we've had, some of us have had so many experiences, and we forget to think that if somebody is attacking you, it's not about you, it's about something that happened to them and their life. And I've found that, my meaning in life is that if somebody comes in and is like, I try and do, like I try very hard to, and it's very rare I have not been able to turn somebody around because I understand. I mean, sometimes I'll even talk to somebody and they start crying in a day because they kind of were mean. And then I start talking to them and understanding, I know it's not about me. So many people take it personally if somebody is not nice, but they don't try and understand that there might be something in their life that is causing them to stack them up, to blow up at you, and it's got nothing to do with you. So this is beautiful too for people who are in any facet of life. I would think particularly customer service, because you're dealing retail, customer service, or whatever. You got people coming up to you, you might get attacked. To know that you're focusing on the good, just try and look at that and start speaking to things. You don't always get through them, but I've had a pretty good percentage of being able to get through to people by just understanding, I know that it's not me. And so I know there might be something going on with you. Let's try and change the venue. Let's try and change the focus. Let's try and see what we can do to make this better. Today is not a good day. This didn't happen too well. There's a solution. Let's go with it. I'm not perfect, but I do have to say that your thoughts of looking at the good of people rather than, judging right there is really big. Will I say when I'm 100% perfect on that? No. I don't think that we all are, but I realize when I'm not. I'm very aware of it. But I think that this game that you have is really good for people who have struggled with being able to do that, to focus on the good. That when somebody walks in, they go, oh, there's that person doing this, blah, 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 and they automatically judge. I've been in retail since I was 22. I've seen this happen where the people come in and they automatically judge the person. And I think it's I've done it, but I've realized it's not fair because people are not always what you see first walk in or how they treat you, right?
Absolutely.
So this is great because it sits there and it makes you focus more on, okay, today I'm looking at the gift. What's the gift of that person walking in? What can I give them in a positive situation, a positive word or whatever, a compliment? So I like this. I love games too. I love Scrabble.
Great. Yeah, I love
I
Scrabble.
love Scrabble.
Yeah, we
I
can
didn't
play
like it as a kid.
words with friends together, Lorianne. So I think that you really hit something really important there, that a gift is not always something that's purchased. Like just what you mentioned a few minutes ago, that when people are down and out, your gift to them is the smile. And it just, how everybody can do this. I don't, well, I guess there are a few people in the world that can't smile, maybe because they've got some muscle problems in their face or something like that. But most people are able to give a smile away. Doesn't cost anything. Absolutely doesn't cost.
International language too.
Absolutely. It really is. And so is the cube. Yeah, I mean, this is international. There are no words on it. It's all pictures, and pictures that people would recognize. Well, what does that mean? And it's easy enough to see that service is service, a gift is a gift. I mean, the timepiece, everybody understands what this might be. And it's very simple to explain, and then they'll understand. And that's just the whole idea. You're trying to develop for any addictions, and I think it'll work for any addiction. I would say that it was more of a knee-jerk reaction for me to start stacking those annoyances. And like I said, it was always about other people. It's always my judgment that I pass to other people, which goes down a path of criticism, which goes down, and it keeps going down into that hole. Just stay out of it. Stay out of any judgment. If you're going to pass judgment, pass generous judgment of the good that they can do. And just say, I love how you scanned all those items so quickly at the checkout stand. You must be the fastest person in this whole store. And it's just those little things that you can say about that person. Doesn't matter who it is. Everywhere there are people, everywhere they're doing their job, everywhere you can compliment them on doing their job and doing it well. Especially if you get that kind of service, be genuine about it, of course, at all times. But just look for something that you can say that is true and that it would be genuine.
Absolutely. And it's actually interesting. I was just trying to think of something. I might have forgotten my train of thought. So we're talking about um, speaking to people kindly and blaming. Okay, so as long as you can blame someone else, I felt like I had to understand that I could blame this person, that person, that person. And I do know that there was, don't get me wrong, I know that there was influence on me from that person. Okay, so I didn't negate that. But then I realized, but it's my choice to respond. I think if you keep blaming someone, you're going to have a really hard time overcoming anything you're trying to overcome as long as you're blaming someone else.
Mhm.
Right.
Absolutely.
So if you take ownership, like you said, and I love that you said that. And I thought I was reading I was watching one of your podcasts, um, and permission to blame is, there's, that's going to just keep you stuck in that hole. If you have a permission to take, ownership of it and saying, yeah, that happened, that influenced me. But now, like you said, your father passed away 7 years ago. It's now my time, and I'm sorry for that, by the way. It's my time to take. I have nothing holding me. There's nothing, and there probably never was, but it's harder when it's there. But now it's gone. So what am I doing? Why am I sitting here? So let's move on. And I love your stacking of the positives. I have to go through that for certain things on a regular basis because sometimes I'm stuck in the negative. And I think, if I'm not wrong, your game is really good because sometimes we do relapse into the stacking of negatives. Sometimes, even in a breakup of a relationship, it's easier to hate them
Mhm.
because, and yet all the great times in that relationship, but it's easier to stack the negatives
Right.
uh,
Absolutely.
to to protect your heart.
Mhm. Well, I
But
think,
I think the
yeah,
opposite is better.
absolutely agree with you that there are just times that it seems like it's okay. But what I found, Lorianne, is that we really kind of need to be proactive. Just like for love, if I sit around and wait for it to come to me, what if I don't even recognize it when it comes? What if and what if and you're having this pity party by yourself that nobody's loving me and you just what if? Well, I found that I found in my life, Larianne, that wherever we're at in our life, even if we're down and out, there is somebody on your street or around the corner that is lower than you, that really needs picked up. That's who you should go to. That's a person that you can help. Go do it. Go help them. Go lift them up. When you're lifting them up, it helps you lift yourself up too. You've got to reach out. You've got to go out there. You can't be waiting for these good feelings to come to you. It's not going to happen. Really, it's not. So you just need to keep sending the love out. You need to be proactive about helping others on their way. And it's no longer about you. And it's no longer about your problems. It's about them. And when you make it about them, it's something that it's invigorating to help others have a better day. That's what you're trying to accomplish here. You're trying to lift their spirits, you're trying to light them up, you're trying to do these things that they'll have a better day. And by doing that, it makes your day better.
Okay, I have one more thing to ask you before we go because uh, I've gone through the doing something better for everybody and then feeling like I was being taken advantage of. Don't, I'm not stopping there. And then being all about me and like literally taking back my life, saying I'm gonna stop and I'm just gonna take care of me, and then becoming very selfish because I needed that moment. And then I started realizing, but when you go to that, because you were saying you stack your anger, it takes time, right? This is not an overnight thing. Because it's taking time for me to realize sometimes somebody goes, how are you doing? Good. And I forget to say, how are you doing? Like, I'm acutely aware of it now, but I spent a few years of introverted, taking care of Lorianne because I was feeling hurt and stuff like that, to move back to being outward. Heck, I'm way better than I was 5 years ago, but I still feel some leftovers of that period. So it is a daily, right? It's a daily habit that you have to continue to work on, because it's not going to happen overnight. I don't want our listeners to think, oh yeah, I'm going to get the diary, I'm going to do the journal, this is great. It takes time. Everything takes time.
Absolutely, Lorianne, and you're spot on with that. For me, though, because I was watching for it, because I knew that I needed this replacement behavior, instead of stacking anger, I needed to stack love. I needed to stack all that to actually make my days happier, to get to those higher level laws of love. And it just, that really helped me. And it was quick. It was within the time frame of forming a brand new habit. Within that 21 to 28 day period, you realize that, oh, I'm not getting angry anymore. I'm watching for opportunities. Instead of what's wrong with them, I'm saying what's right with them, what can I love about them? And now I have this new habit. And I continue, even the die itself, the cube itself was copyrighted in 2017. So I was working with that, only that, and just last year that it was by the suggestion of a mental health professional, a practitioner, that said, you need to write a book about the die so that they go hand in hand, so that people understand how to use that die, because it's fabulous. What it did for me, it possibly could do for someone else. I'm a coach that way. I can help you get to those goals in that way, but it's really your desire and what you want to accomplish. Whatever your goals are, I can't set goals for you, but whatever your goals are to overcome whatever addiction it might be, that's what I can help you with.
I love it. Okay, so as we close off, I really would like for you to share where people can find you, where they can, it will be in the notes as well, but I'd like you to speak it out for our listeners as well, please.
Sure. So I named this I called it the Role of Love, ROLE of love, and it's rolloflove.com. And so it's kind of a play on words. You roll the die, and that's something outside of you. But in taking that makes it a role, something that you do inside, something that you'll practice within. And so it's rolloflove.com. They can get the die, they can get the book, they can get the journal in a bundle for less than even one therapy session, a lot less than one therapy session. It's on special right now for $29.99 for all three of those items, the whole bundle for that. And just, you can go on there. If you have listeners that prefer Audible books, you'll have to go on Amazon. Don't type in Roll of Love, because you'll get love this, love that, love a million things. And you're not, it's going to be a needle in a haystack to find the book. But what you want to type in is my name. It'll bring it right up. You could get the journal, you could get the book for your foreign listeners, that you can get the book and the journal, but the Audible version of the book is on Amazon. And you can download it. If you've got Audible, you can download that, or I've got a Kindle version of it as well on Amazon.
Perfect. And that's Paul, Paul, of course, Zolman, Zolman. And if you're from the States, it would be Zolman. I am from Canada, so there we go. And I just really appreciate your time, really seriously. This is really interesting. I like the focus. I like the focus on your positive, and I look forward to. I'm seriously going to purchase one, because I'm seriously interested. And it's not that it's not something that is in my philosophy, but to actually pull the die and roll it and journal it. I think it just every morning reminds you, right? You wake up in the morning, reminds you, this is my focus. Thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lorianne. It's been my pleasure to be with you.
Great day. Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com.